to, oh shit, like, I don't want this impacting our friendship. Nobody gets a straight ride up and to the right. Like, there's some volatility ahead. So anyway.
That's super.
Yeah. So with your Bitcoin, did you go into other digital assets from an investment point of view? Strictly Bitcoin? What's your stance?
Strictly Bitcoin. I think if you think about it from an investment perspective, the goal is to make money. I still think Bitcoin is the best risk reward of any asset I can think of. And there's 3 reasons that Bitcoin is different from an investment perspective relative to any other cryptocurrency. First is its causal ambiguity, right? Satoshi, we don't know who that is. That was a work of genius. Not putting their name on it was an incredibly selfless act in that people, when there are names or people associated with certain things, people take different associations towards people, right? And so this idea stands on its own, and Satoshi knew how powerful it could be, and here we are. So that's first, that's causal ambiguity. Second is the proof of work aspect to it, and that the energy intensity and the security around it have now led to a point where it's impenetrable, whereas you can't say that about other cryptocurrencies. The proof of stake that other cryptocurrencies run on is just fiat all over again, right? Whereas proof of work is not. And third, it's the concept of path dependence, in that the first mover advantage of Bitcoin and now the energy intensity around it, and now countries, family offices, companies, the dominoes are all falling. And we're really at a tipping point here. If you look now, it was interesting, it was incredible what Michael did with MicroStrategy. Now you've got other companies starting to do this. And capital markets are a competitive place. If you look at how well the bonds have done tied to Bitcoin believer entities, whether that's El Salvador buying Bitcoin or Argentina's bonds are one of the best performers since the election. MicroStrategy bonds, if you look at the implied cost of capital tied to the MicroStrategy bonds, that's incredible how low the cost of capital is that they're getting. And I'm a huge believer in markets' ability to give you information value and signal value. And take a look at the way Semler Scientific's volume just exploded after they announced their Bitcoin treasury strategy. Look at what happened with Metaplanet. Volume explodes. So people are voting with real dollars on these things, and that's a really powerful signal for us.
Yeah, I would add one other factor that I think isn't replicable for Bitcoin's origin is that period, what I call the immaculate conception, is that period of trading where there was no value. Even if you could recreate all those other things today, you can't have that pristine period, which eliminates all cheating and angle shooting and insider stuff. So, but I agree with you. But so let's back up a little bit and talk a little bit about family offices and how folks like yourself are allocating capital. Traditionally, family offices have been fairly conservative in how they allocate capital among different asset classes. How is that traditionally? How is that now? Has it changed much?
I think people are increasingly receptive to it. At the end of the day, everything comes down to incentives. And so family offices are structured in very different ways. Traditional financial firms are structured in very different ways. Someone asked me recently, they said, oh, how do your traditional finance, your TradFi colleagues think of Bitcoin right now? And I think a lot of them are more positive on it personally in their own accounts than they are potentially investing on behalf of others, because at the end of the day, most people work for somebody else who has a boss or a series of bosses. And so if you think about the incentives there, even if you believe in Bitcoin and think it's going to do really well, if you buy Bitcoin on behalf of somebody else, it goes down, one of your bosses doesn't like it, you're done, right? Your head's chopped off. Whereas if it goes right and somebody that you work for didn't like it, you get a begrudging pat on the back, right? So everything comes down to incentives. I think that's why this has been a founder-led revolution, and that founder-controlled companies are the ones that are doing this. Owner-controlled firms are the ones that are buying it on behalf of their clients. And so it really varies. But if you just look at the addressable market for it, it's still massive. I mean, the right tail opportunity is so huge. If you just look at pensions globally, if they were to decide, yeah, we need a 10% allocation to Bitcoin, just the pension offices, it's 250 a coin, 250K, right? And so there's just so much capital out there in the world. People compare it to digital gold. I think that's baked in the cake from my perspective over a longer time horizon. I think it's much higher than that. You know, it's people are thinking about it wrong. It's the